When you created your SQL Server connections, you would have also created the connections for the underlying operating system, and that could be Linux or Windows. We can access the dashboards for Windows and Linux. On the left hand side here, you'll see the group by here for Windows. So these are the Windows connections we have, and the Unix ones. But you can access the dashboards as well directly from the SQL Server connection. So let's have a look at that. If we drill into the instance here, we can see the operating system. So if that was high, for example, we might want to drill into this particular view, and that will take us across to the operating system view looking at CPU. Alternatively, we can just access them directly by selecting the group, and if we wanted to look at the connection for Windows here, we can just drill in directly. And also the Unix one would be at the bottom. So let's have a quick overview of these dashboards. You can see here we've got a list of various different dashboards that we can look at: the alarms overview, the processes, the services, the CPU, memory, disks and network. We'll start off with the alarms. So this will give us a list of the alarms currently associated with this connection, and we've got the smart alarm information on the right hand side where we can acknowledge, snooze or diagnose a particular problem from here. If we're on the overview screen, we could also bring out the alarms dashboard from the right hand side. So we've got a good overview of all the operating system components like the networking, the version of Windows, the system information, the current status, CPU, memory, and paging information and disk information. And each of what these we can drill down into. So for example, if we want to look at processes, we get a list of the processes running on this particular instance, and we can see we can select these particular processes to get more information on the right hand side. So obviously SQL Server will be an important one here. Looking at services, we get a list of the services running on this machine, and again we can select individual services and get the details on the right hand side. So if we wanted to search for the SQL Server services, we could select them here, and on the right hand side we'll see the details and their dependencies. We looked at CPU earlier, where we can see a graph of CPU utilization over time, looking at the system or user components, and at the top bar we can see the type of CPUs we've got and the utilization and number of processes. And underneath we get these lists of all the different processes and their relative consumption of CPU. So quite healthy here, we've only got 6.8% of CPU for SQL Server. Memory is also available, where we'll see at the top the utilization of the memory and whether it's physical or virtual, a number of pages, page fault rates, the cache hit ratio, and any outstanding alarms. And we'll see a graph of utilization over time and also a list of the top processes that we currently have. Disks will give us a list of all the logical disks, physical disks, and top consumers on the disks, and we can see the two drives that we have allocated to this particular Windows machine. So we can select the C or the D drive here, and on the right hand side we'll get information about usage and transfer queue lengths and kilobytes written or read. And at the top we can see utilization of those disks as well. And finally, we've got the network, where we can see information about packets in and out, the overall rate at the top there, and information on the right hand side to do with in and out kilobytes and any error rates that we might be having. So that's a good overview of all the Windows information. As I mentioned, we've also got information about the Unix, or the Linux components here if we've connected into that. and we can select the category for Unix, drill into this particular Linux machine, and we will get an overview of the Linux operating system, similar to what we had for Windows, with networking, the overall system version, CPU, memory, swap space, disks, etc. There isn't any other drill downs for this at the moment, but we've also got a coverage of the alarms associated with the Linux operating system, which again we could acknowledge, diagnose or snooze. Okay, so that's an overview of the operating system dashboards. Thank you.